a little to the government side. You said you've done some work in government. Did you talk to that a little bit in terms of just your experiences or your takeaways, or what's working well, or where is how do these Lean and Six Sigma tools help the most in those areas from your experience so far?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work in government. Some of the bigger contracts and customers that we've served are CMS. That's the Centers for, most people in the U.S. don't know that it's called CMS, but that's Medicare and Medicaid, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And they're in the Washington area, in Baltimore is where their hub is. But we worked with them for about 6 years, which is a long term, but they at the time were led by Dr. Don Berwick as the administrator. And he was a big fan of Lean Six Sigma. So coming from the very top of CMS, he said, I want everyone in the organization, top down, to embrace and understand and start incorporating Lean Six Sigma to eliminate waste. And his whole goal, which is a great goal for CMS, was better health and better access to health. So very different aspect from working in business. So that was on the health side. We've also done a lot of work with school districts. So the largest school district in the country is Charlotte-Mecklenburg in North Carolina. And we did work with them, Putnam County, Tennessee, Williamsburg, James in Virginia. So several large school districts. And the difference between these the government bodies and business, they have a lot of things in common, right? They all have ambitious goals. They all have competing priorities. They have resource constraints. They're all trying to grow and scale in some way. But the difference is that in business, they've got a paying customer. Someone is buying their product or their service. They've got competition. They're focused on revenue and profit. A lot of times their go-to solutions on the business side are hire more people, do more training, get better technology. It's a whole different animal when you get to government or nonprofits. They're serving a community. They're serving a population, not a paying customer. They many times have a disinterested population that they're serving. The population or the community they're serving doesn't even know that the service exists until they're in great need of it. Mm-hmm. And then they need it, and they need it fast. So it's a very different perspective. At the government agencies and the nonprofits, they have a very different view of efficiency. So because they're not focused on profit, they're focused on retaining and achieving more budget and getting more funds. So it's a whole different focus, which necessarily drives their efforts in a different direction. So it's a whole different aspect when you start to bring in these problem-solving skills. So another big difference working with government or nonprofits is that many times the people they're serving and the people inside the organization have very low expectations for efficiency. You know, it's like when you think you're going to the DMV, you don't expect at all to have a great, efficient experience. If things go smoothly, you want to tell your friends about it. Oh my God, I went to the DMV and it actually went well. I got in and out in only 2 hours. So the low expectations and people inside saying, yeah, it's just how it always is. It's just how it's always been. It's a whole different animal. And then the other thing, I think the major difference, especially with nonprofits, is that many of them serve a worldwide audience. And when you multiply that times the world, now you've got cultural differences. You have very huge gaps in standards of living and infrastructure, what's available to people, how to get the word out. So where businesses are seeking more people, more hiring, more technology, in government and in NGOs or in nonprofits, they're looking for funding, more budget, access to some kind of capital or funding. So it's a very different kind of world. But for us, the interesting thing is that the same fundamental concepts of how to improve or create a great operation, it still applies. It really is about understanding the challenges that what's different so that you can apply it properly. You don't go into a nonprofit or a government organization the same way you do a big manufacturing business, or a bank. It's very different.